Okay. This is Programmed to Kill by David McGowan. This is a fascinating book on serial killers, and as it says here in the subtitle, the politics of serial murder. And Mr. McGowan puts forth a fascinating theory, but stops short of really connecting the dots. That's my one complaint with his writing style in this book is, and I'll explain my complaint and then I'll explain why I think that's excusable given the circumstances. His writing style, it takes a little bit of getting used to. If you're new to his writing, it might kind of irritate you at first because there's a lot of things that he stops just shy of really making hard conclusions. And he'll allude to a lot of things, and he'll speculate and say a couple of sentences where he's like, this happened and this happened, and this happened on this date. And gee, isn't that strange? But he won't really say what he thinks might have happened. And that sometimes that gets a little tiresome. But to his credit, I get that a lot of that is because there's obviously legal implications to some of the things he's saying, and he's naming names and places and dates. And some of these people are very much alive and could have come after him. Now, David McGowan has since passed away. He died 5 years ago today, which is one of the reasons I dug this out and thought this was a timely time to make this review of his book. So I'll cut him some slack there because, again, given the material and given the sensitivity of his topics, I totally understand having to kind of step around some landmines there and make sure you don't get sued for writing this book. So that said, what's it about? It's David McGowan puts forth the theory that that serial killers play a bigger role in kind of steering the political agenda of the country through either assassinations or other kinds of political crimes. They're disguised as kind of random crimes. Again, kind of frustrating there because he never really brings that home and makes it clear, okay, this is what I believe is going on. So that's a little frustrating. Now, I will say to that point, this is kind of the jumping off point. If you are serious about researching serial killers and their relation to our political system, this is a great book. And the bibliography alone is worth the price of the book. He goes into a lot of, has a lot of source material that deals with occult crime and a lot of serial killer source material there. So he starts off with a section about what he refers to. He believes that a lot of the Western world is run by what he calls the pedocracy, I think is how I would pronounce that. And what that is, he essentially is saying that he believes that intelligence agencies like, say, the CIA or the Israeli Mossad or whoever have used, and to be fair, he's mainly focusing on the CIA, have used blackmail against politicians who have, shall we say, predilections towards children, pedophile politicians and that sort of thing, to control these individuals. And that basically this has gotten out of hand, that in a lot of Western governments that this methodology of using blackmail to recruit and control politicians has just run totally out of control and resulted in corruption of the highest order. And I tend to agree. I think if McGowan was alive today and he could see what all is happening right now, I think he would be even more shocked than he was, 15 years ago or so when he wrote this. So fascinating book and a lot of fascinating treatment of different serial killer cases. And what he does is essentially go through, he catalogs a lot of different serial killer cases and points out a lot of the strange anomalies and a lot of the weird connections some of these guys have, and how some of these connections, once they got caught, got swept under the rug. And in some cases where they had multiple accomplices, that was all conveniently wiped from the record. So very fascinating there. I've gone through, and a lot of the books he mentions, I went and hunted down and have them as part of my library. If I could swivel the camera, I have a whole bookshelf of stuff that I found because of this book. So Very highly recommended if you're into researching serial killers or how the serial killer problems, shall we say, fits into the bigger political scheme, because some of this you may think is pretty far out. First time I read this, I was a little annoyed. Some of it I thought he was kind of reaching, and then I read it again after I read some other books and came back to this. And the second reading, I was really sucked in. I thought he really had a lot more going for his thesis than I originally thought. So definitely worth a look. Program to Kill: The Politics of Serial Murder by David McGowan. Again, really good at kind of breaking the, there's really been a push to label the period of, mid 80s to early 90s as kind of the satanic panic period where everybody was going nuts, and it was evangelical Christians pointing the finger at everybody, calling them witches. And having lived through that, I can say, while yes, there were conservative groups that were anti-witchcraft, there was not the view towards that people say there is now. So some of that is kind of a little convenient rewriting of history. And as he points out in here, there's definitely been a very deliberate effort to kind of wipe the official record of a lot of occult criminal activity. So if you're curious about that sort of thing, definitely check it out. Program to Kill. And if nothing else, if you're a serious researcher into political criminal activity, just his bibliography alone is worth it for this. So there you go.